You're watching Pedestal by Ashley Sargeant Hagan. Chapter 29. Edwin slept late that morning. It was partly due to jet lag, but the questions in his mind had kept him awake far longer than he wished. When he got up, he ordered breakfast from his butler and decided he could get used to that. He had gone to bed angry. Angry at Adriana, angry at Hazim, angry at himself. He even threw Philip into it. Why did he have to find that stupid photograph? Wouldn't I be better off without knowing where she is, without knowing the truth? But that's when the questions began coming, because he didn't know the truth. Edwin knew the wise thing to do at this point would be to leave, cut his losses. It's what she said she wanted. But something deep within him wouldn't let him do the wise thing, the safe thing. Something deep within him told him that she needed him and that somehow he had to stay, to stick it out. She isn't Mary Alice Rowan. Hazim isn't Stephen Quinn. And this time, I won't fade into the background like some kind of stage prop. This time, I'll take the center. He'd remembered, despite his haste in leaving town, to bring the script with him that Deborah wanted him to read. He flipped through it. It was based on a popular novel about a lawyer trying to get a convicted murderer off of death row, while the real murderer, Edwin's character if he chose to play it, was trying to prevent him from doing so. It was gritty, it was suspenseful, it was probably the next big hit. Edwin was thankful he had something to occupy his brain while he waited for Adriana to come back from work. Work. His mind began spinning again. What does she really do? That was one of the nagging questions that had kept him up the night before. All this research, lengthy stays in foreign countries, staying at the Sargeant Palace instead of something less expensive and nearer to the museum. Who's paying for all of this? Hazim? Edwin shuddered at the thought. He texted Philip, letting him know things were not going well, but he was determined to stay. Brenda sent him a photograph of Chloe. Just thought you'd like to see this. Chloe was standing, looking at the camera with a feigned look of surprise on her face. Simon, Edwin's director friend who had brought Chloe to the birthday party, was on his knee in front of her with a ring. Wow, I wonder how long that will last. Late in the afternoon, he strolled down to the Gazebo restaurant for tea. He was surprised once again by the lack of recognition from the other guests. Even the staff, who treated him well, did not look at him any differently than they did the other guests. To them, he was merely a well-paying patron. Anonymity. It had been so long since he had felt it. In school growing up, he had felt it. Despite being Portia Valentine's or Sir Thomas's son, he was just one of the boys. Surrounded by young men like Philip, sons of earls, the sons of foreign dignitaries, nobody cared who his parents were, except Mary Alice. For years as a struggling actor, nobody recognized him in the street or asked for his autograph at the airport. There were no screaming teenage girls or crazy fans with knives, but success had stolen anonymity. On the one hand, he grieved for it and was relieved to be left alone again, to be treated like everyone else. On the other hand, he was thankful for a full schedule, a successful career, recognition. But fame is a fickle thing. How long would he have, he wondered, before he was forgotten? 10 years? 5 years? 1? How long until the next Edwin Sterling came along? He ambled down the great staircase behind the hotel to the garden that overlooked the Bosphorus. The water side of the Sargeant was famous for its beautiful double staircase that led from the river to the entrance to the hotel lobby above. Both sides of the ornately decorated stone-carved stairs were carpeted in red, giving the appearance of a royal welcome. Edwin passed the 2 outdoor pools, brilliantly blue. There were a few swimmers brave enough to swim in the heated infinity pool beside the Bosphorus. Palm trees stood like sentinels on either side of a beautiful fountain, and a great stone archway framed the walk that led up from the river. Guests could arrive and depart by boat from here. A river cruise was just boarding. Edwin stood leaning against the cool stone of the arch, watching families and couples boarding the elaborately decorated golden boat. Their laughter echoed across the water long after they had departed. Happiness, such a transient thing. He focused again on the dock, where another boat had arrived. This one was not so elaborate. It was small and white with a bright blue hull. Water taxi. Only one passenger disembarked. Edwin was surprised to see it was Adriana. She was wearing a gold-colored scarf draped loosely over her hair, which she removed as she got off the boat. He was struck by how much she seemed to belong here, like an Ottoman princess. "Waiting for me?" she asked as she approached. She seemed tired and strained. "Not intentionally," he said. "I didn't expect you to come and go by boat." He joined her as she walked slowly toward the hotel. "I prefer going by water taxi," she explained. "It's cooler and there's less traffic." They walked in silence, enjoying the breeze that washed up from the river. She began to relax, closing her eyes sometimes and breathing deep, slow breaths. He recognized the technique. He used it often to prepare for a part. As they ascended the great staircase, she smiled weakly at him. "I knew you wouldn't leave. You are so stubborn." "I'm afraid you're right," he agreed, "but stubbornness can be a virtue. If you're stubborn for the right reasons, you can call it being steadfast." She smiled. "Will you have dinner with us again?" she asked. "We're eating in the hotel restaurant tonight. Tugra, the one with the covered terrace." "Will your boyfriend mind?" "He's not my boyfriend, and I think he will be disappointed if you don't. He's a big fan of yours." Once again, Edwin found himself across the table from Adriana, with Hazim dominating the head of the table between them. The open air of the restaurant made it less stifling than in Hazim's suite, where everything felt controlled by him. Here there were other hotel guests at the other tables, evidence that everything did not revolve around the Bahrainian air. There was an indoor section of the restaurant, but on fair nights like this one, guests could eat on the covered terrace that overlooked the river. The breeze from the Bosphorus was cool and refreshing and smelled slightly of the sea. This evening, Hazim had condescended to ask about Edwin, his work, his future expectations. Edwin mentioned life as Dr. Hanover and told funny stories from the set. He even talked about the new script he was reading in confidential tones. Once Edwin looked up to find Adriana paying particular attention to him, though when Hazim told stories, she often seemed far away, as if her thoughts were elsewhere. "Say your famous line, Edwin," urged Hazim. "Say, it's a matter of life and death." It was one of Dr. Hanover's iconic sayings. Edwin tilted his head suavely to the side. "It's a matter of life and death," he said in his serious Dr. Hanover voice. Hazim clapped and laughed uproariously. "That's so great, I love it." He gave Edwin an appreciative slap on the shoulder. "So what about this Chloe, Edwin?" asked Hazim out of the blue. Mortifying. "It looked like you two had a thing going. Now I see she's engaged to someone else." He eyed Edwin with a steady gaze. "Looking for something to hold over my head." He could feel the attention of the entire table. Edwin shrugged and shook his head. "It was nothing," he admitted. "That's the truth." "She was a beautiful distraction, nothing more," he added, choosing to endear himself to Hazim by his detachment. "I wish her all the happiness she deserves." He glanced quickly at Adriana, wondering how much she knew, how she felt. Her face was impassive, like stone. Toward the end of the meal, Hazim's silent butler approached and whispered something in his ear. "Excellent, thank you, Bahadir," said Hazim. He turned excitedly to Adriana. "So it is settled, Eleni," he announced. "Tomorrow we go to Canicale." Adriana shifted uncomfortably in her chair, glancing at Edwin. "Come with us, Edwin," Hazim cried, his arms outstretched as if he were offering something for sale. "We go to Canicale for the day. Eleni wants to see the city of Troy, Helen visiting Troy." He laughed. "You're changing hotels?" asked Edwin, surprised. No need. My plane is here in Istanbul. We will go to Troy and come back to Istanbul the same day. Every Englishman wants to see Troy." "I thought it would just be us, Hazim," said Adriana, pouting. "Inayi, we cannot be selfish. There's always room for one more in my party." Edwin hesitated. "Don't you have to leave tomorrow, Edwin?" Adriana asked, her eyebrows raised. A challenge. "No, I have no plans to leave just yet," he replied, meeting her gaze. "Excellent!" Hazim clapped his hands together as if closing a deal.